Hey everybody, BK here with another episode of the Silver Savage podcast. I'm again at my studio, which is certainly a lot easier, more comfortable, and hopefully the audio and video are both better. I would assume it's better than the podcast I recorded last week in my car. So hopefully you guys get the benefits. Before I move into today's topic, just wanted to remind everybody that our website has been up for a while and we appreciate everybody that's been visiting it. But if you haven't, go and check it out. You can find all the episodes of the podcast there. Our shops, if you want any of our swags, t-shirts, our paint bomb or inhaler, or if you want more information about the coaching program, it's all on the website, silversavage.com. So head over there when you're done listening to this episode. Check it out. Regardless, if you don't mind also reviewing us and leaving a comment on this podcast, that helps our rating. It helps us move up and share the information with more people. As we always say, we don't charge for it. We don't want anything in return, with the exception of sharing as much knowledge with as many people as we can. So if you find value in this and if you follow up, please leave a comment or review and certainly share it with other people if you don't mind. With no further ado, let's get into today's episode. So today I want to talk about a topic that's been coming up in questions that people send me. And as you guys know, a lot of my podcasts are a direct result of questions that you guys submit. And if you haven't yet, feel free to message me either directly through these podcast links or my personal social media. But certainly feel free to reach out. Last week's podcast about safety for teens starting to drive was a direct response to three of you messaging me, coincidentally enough, on the same topic. So same with today's topic, and today's topic is all about goal setting. Not only are people asking me about this on a regular basis, this is also a topic that is timely because this month, March, with our coaching client in our coaching group, we are going through goal setting processes. And probably most importantly, personally for myself, I am going through this process with my business and personal life, and goal setting is just something that's on the upfront for me, and something that I would like to share with you because a lot of us are going through life, and honestly, if we don't have a goal, we don't have something we're going towards, we're just spinning the wheels, but we're not really going to accomplish anything. That's not a good life. So in order for us to really grow, we have to have a destination, right? The saying goes that if I don't have a destination, any road would lead me there, right? So if I want to achieve something, then now I can set up the action plans that's going to take me there and help me achieve that goal. Now, as we know, in the Silver Savage coaching platform, but also if you just went and checked our website or any discussion that we had, there are 4 pillars that we typically concern ourselves with as true savages. And when I say savages, again, just to reframe for those of you that are just joining this podcast that's been going on for 3 years, it doesn't have to be a warrior in the sense of a police officer or military special operations or anything like that. You can be a savage as being a mother taking care of a family, as a business owner, or even as an employee, any team leader, but anybody that truly aspires to be a leader, whether in the community, in their family, in the business, on their own, on a leader over themselves, is a savage, right? So if I think of the 4 pillars of being a savage, right, they break down into my actual warrior skills, which are my body, my health, right, my physicality, but also warrior specific skills, if that's applicable for you. So knowing self-defense, firearms, and so forth, right? We have our mind, so our ability to control our thinking, to control our stress, manage it, right, but also keep learning and growing. Right? We have relationships, so we interact with other people, from staff and teams to family, and obviously our relationship with ourselves being the most important. And last one being business, right? So if our business grows, then as savages we can provide more and do more, right? So even though we'd like to think that money is in the end all be all, the reality is that if you don't have money, you can't do anything else. So if you have money, if your business grows, and again, it can be your business or you can be working for somebody else, but your finances are growing, that gives you the freedom to do more things, right? To take care of your family better, to support the community, to do charity, whatever it is that you want to do, right? You can do better if you have a higher income. So when we think about those 4 pillars, right, we want to set goals. Now, I will tell you right off the get-go the 2 main things, because we can talk about goal setting forever. And again, with our coaching program, this is a month-long endeavor that we're going to be taking. But for purposes of this podcast and not to make it overly lengthy, I'm going to consider the 2 main topics that I mention to everybody that comes to me for advice about goal setting. Issue number 1 is I find people are going too small. And issue number two is that um, people are confusing goals with a task list, a to-do list, right, an action list, and the two are not the same, right? So I'm going to start with the first item, which is thinking too small. And the question I always ask everybody, right? It can be a family member, it can be a friend, it can be a coaching client, whatever it is. The question is always, do you feel stretched? And if the answer is yes, that's a good thing. That means you're challenging yourself. There's some growth happening. If you don't feel stretched, right? If you don't feel challenged in your day to day, then the reality is that there is no growth happening, right? So understanding that is paramount. So if I feel stretched, that's a good place for me to be. Now, there is a balance between stretched and being overwhelmed, and we're going to talk about that in a minute. But I certainly want to feel that is something is beyond my reach, because God, that's going to force me to go after it, right? The reality is that our brain, and there's a lot of science behind this, right? So you can talk to psychologists and physiologists, honestly, and there will neurologists, right? They will all tell you the same thing. Your brain will look for what you tell it to look for, right? So if I am thinking small, if my goal is small, then my brain is going to look for the solution to that one, and it's probably going to be an easy one for me to get. But if I think bigger, now my brain is forced to look for a different solution. That's really where growth is happening, in that planning, in that strategizing, in that long-term action plan that I'm going to need to take to reach that goal. So thinking big is important, and a lot of us thinking small. A lot of us learn the acronym SMART, and I'll be honest, up to about a month ago, I used it with my own coaching clients, and it's something that I learned from my father, so I have an emotional attachment to it. But the acronym SMART, in my mind, is debilitating in a sense. And what I mean is SMART, for those of you that are not familiar, it's been used a lot in business management, in planning, and it stands for specific, measurables, actionable, reasonable, and time bound. So, and there are some variations of that. So some people learn some of these letters being something different, but overall they mean the same thing. And the problem with the SMART acronym is when you think about something that is reasonable, achievable, right? Actionable, then we have a capacity essentially limit that we are placing on ourselves. Because if I say, listen, I want to go for that goal because I know I can achieve it, it's a reasonable goal, there is no challenge truly. The easiest analogy I can give you is, let's say you're making $100,000 a year and you want to go to $150,000 a year, right? So that's a 50% increase. A lot of people would say that's a lot. But spread over the period of a year, 50,000, that's really not a lot, right? If I can go and make that much money flipping burgers. So there's no true challenge. For me to come up with $50,000 more dollars a year, that is not your challenge. But now if I want to go for, let's say, 100,000 a year to $1,000,000 a year, now we're talking 1,000% growth. Now there's a challenge. Now my brain has to stretch. Now I need to come up with a strategy and an idea and a plan on how to get from point A to point B. And that is really what we want to do with everything in life. Now, before I continue, I do want to digress for a second and mention something else, because I mentioned the 4 pillars. And again, it's the word specific. So my body, my health, word specific skills. It's our mind, it's our relationship, it's our business. And some of those are harder for me to come up with goals, specifically stretching goals, specifically long-term goals. For example, when we talk about mind, right? When we talk about how to manage stress or how to learn, it's hard for me to come with a long-term goal other than I want to meditate, right? Same thing with relationships. It's easy for me to say, I just want to have good relationships. How do you define a good relationship? What does that mean to you? That's a little more challenging. That's a little bit harder. The beauty of proper goal setting, though, is that if you set proper goals, they compound on each other and they build on each other. So, for example, if I want a strong relationship with my family, and for my mind, what I mean by strong relationship, it's not that I want necessarily the bonds to be any stronger, because I feel like I do have a good bond with my wife, with my kids, with my friends, with my community. But for me, that translates to having more time with them, to having more capital in order to be able to take more vacations with them. So if I think of that as a goal, then that directly correlates to my business goals, because as my business grows, if I put a financial goal that I want to reach, that will allow me to take that extra free time or to take that extra vacation and so forth. So my business goal actually directly correlates to my relationships goal. Same thing with my mind. If I want to manage stress better, right? Or in my case, I want to go for a PhD at some point. I have no idea why, just something I want to do. So again, my business goal will give me the freedom of doing that. And if I have a better relationship, I can probably manage stress better. So everything kind of compounds on each other. And ultimately, when we talk about the warrior skills on my body, I couldn't accomplish anything if I'm not in good health or strong enough or have the stamina to manage the workload, the stress, time with my kids. You try running around after 4 kids and playing ball and catch and whatnot without having the stamina to do so. So all my goals are interconnected. And the one I can measure the best is probably my business one, but I know that if I increase my business, that will allow me the freedom to do the other things I want to do on the other pillars with my family and myself and so forth. So there's got to be an understanding that when we set goals, they do have to compound and build on each other. And if I do it correctly, then those goals will translate not only to being on one pillar, but translate to multiple pillars. And that is absolutely amazing. So again, if I want to set goals that are almost unreasonable, right? If I set that goal that high, first of all, as we said, my brain is going to have to stretch, and it's really going to have to find a way to do so. And as we mentioned, that is where growth happens. But just as importantly, let's say I set that goal moving from 100,000 to 1 million over a yearly income. And let's say I don't get it, right? If I set 100 to 150, I could probably reach it. If not by the first year, certainly by the second year. That growth is not, it's linear, it's not that challenging. We can do that. When we think about going from 100,000 to 1 million, then as we said, that is a little bit harder, and I may not be able to reach it. But can we argue that I'm likely going to surpass the $150,000 just by thinking that I want to make 1 million? So maybe I don't make 1 million. Maybe I make 500,000, 600,000. Am I much better off than I was if I just fought from going from 100 to 150? 100%. I don't know why I use percentage, right? But it seems applicable right now. But really, I want to increase my income by 1,000%. Actually, when I did the math for my personal finances, I wanted to increase my income by 7,500%. That's a number that I have in mind. And now my brain has to stretch and figure, how do I get from point A to point B? What steps do I need to take? What actions do I need to take? What relationships do I need to build? You guys see how those pillars work together. What relationships do I need to let go of because they're holding me back? What do I need to do in terms of my health to be able to sustain that? So everything builds on each other. When people talk about realistic goals, again, going back to the SMART acronym, there's going to be a lack of fulfillment. If I am not challenged, I'm not fulfilled. And honestly, I don't know if you guys follow my morning briefs. If you don't, go ahead and follow Instagram, BK Battle Ready, all one word. I put every morning a morning brief. And recently I put a series of them. A couple of them were about scars or about failures, about mistakes that we made and how we learn from them. And one recently was about regrets, because we all have it. But one of the biggest regrets, and that's what I put this morning, because what I said this morning is I don't want people to quit. If you are on the verge of quitting, whatever it is that you're doing, your dream, your way of getting from 100,000 to 1 million, when you take your last breath, what are you most likely to regret? The fact that you quit on your dream and went with a steady route, with a sure plan of I'm going to go flip burgers and I know I'm going to make $150,000 a year and I'm going to be taking care of the bare minimums, but there's going to be no fulfillment, no challenge? Or are you going to regret not going for your dream? And then maybe you made it, maybe you didn't, but at the last moment of your life, what's the course you want to take? So I want to feel fulfilled. I may not reach my dream, but I want to feel that I did everything. And there's going to be a sense of accomplishment in that for me personally. And I don't think you can put a price on that. So that is as far as setting goals that are too small, which I feel a lot of people do, and we have to be mindful of that. The second thing is people are confusing, as I mentioned, goals with to-do list or with task list. The examples I'm going to give you, because I've been talking to a few people, specifically when we come to some of the less tangible goals, such as relationships or such as mind, when people were saying, well, I want to be able to read 10 pages a day, or I want to be able to reach out to 5 people a week, whatever it is, that is not a goal. That's a to-do list. I check it off every morning. Did I read 10 pages? Check. Good. Next. It's not a goal, right? So there's no challenge in that. There's no stretch in that. That is how I'm going to accomplish a goal ultimately. So the difference is I got to stop thinking in terms of how and think in terms of why. So not how you're doing or what you're doing, right? The reading the 10 pages, but why are you reading those 10 pages? What's the ultimate result that you're looking for? So using myself as an example, if I want to get a PhD, then at some point I'm going to have to read a significant amount of pages a day in order to write whatever work I need to write and take the exams I need to take. So my how or my what will be directly related or direct response to my why. Why am I doing it? So as you write your goals, I want you to double check if what you're putting down is actually a why or a what/how. So make sure that you don't confuse the two, because a lot of people do get those confused, and that's inhibiting because you are not able to actually track progress because you have no destination that you're going for. Being able to read a certain amount of pages a day, as noble as that is, it's not a destination. So I hope that makes sense to you. I said a sentence in my last coaching call on last Friday, and so actually when this drops on Monday, so it will be 2 Fridays ago, when I said this statement, and it kept being repeated to me by the coaching clients, and I guess they shared it with other people, and they replied it to me, repeated it to me. Sorry, I'm stumbling on my English today. I apologize. But I think it resonated with a lot of people, and it's something that I would like to end this podcast with and leave you guys with. And the statement went along the lines, and I can't remember it verbatim, so I apologize, but it went something along the line of stop constricting yourself with what you can do and start going with what you want to do. So when we talk about goal setting, don't be bound by what you think you can accomplish right now. Set that goal. Whatever skill set you have to build in order to get to that goal, we're going to work on, right? So I just read or listened in another podcast, somebody was talking about climbing Mount Everest, and they said, you don't decide today, I'm going to climb Mount Everest, and you go and do it next week. There's a preparation of about anywhere from 4 to 10 years to do so. You have to climb some smaller mountains, some lower summits before that. You need to get your conditioning in place. You need to get the gear, the guides. It's going to take time, right? But if I cannot climb Mount Everest now, I can start thinking, okay, what do I need to do in order to climb Mount Everest? And then I start working on those processes until I get there. There's a lot of things out there today that people thought to be impossible not too long ago. And all of a sudden they became possible. And as soon as they became possible, it's like a barrier was broken and everybody can accomplish it. The two most obvious examples that I can give you, is landing on the moon, assuming you're not a conspiracy theorist believing that no one ever did. But nobody thought that would be possible, space flying and so forth. And now we have shuttles all over the place. We have satellites all over the place. People are landing on the moon on a fairly regular basis. I know I'm exaggerating, but you get the point. Right. So the idea is that was an impossible, and if people were going according to what they thought they could do, we would never reach it. Somebody had the vision and the idea, and it's like, this is what I want to do. I'm going to figure out the steps to get to it. The second one is breaking the 4-minute mile barrier. If you look historically, that seemed an unreasonable number. People could not go below 4 minutes. Until somebody did, and I need to check who that was because I've been using that example a lot, and I feel like I really should know who the runner was that broke it the first time. But since that time, we've had multiple athletes break the 4-minute mile barrier. It's just a matter of somebody doing it. Why shouldn't that or can't that be you? The reality is, if you want to do something that's never been done before, you're the only one that can do it. So stop limiting yourself by what can be done and start thinking about what you want to get done. Write that down and then think, okay, if I want this to be my end destination, what are steps I need to take in order to build to get to that point? And I'm not going to go too in-depth after that. I'm going to leave you with a little teaser. If you want to learn the steps and so forth, check out our coaching program. But with that said, I want to thank everybody again for listening, for sharing, for commenting, for sending me questions. Please, please, please keep doing that. So I have topics that I think you're interested in, and I'm not just, running my mouth on stuff that I think is interesting, because ultimately I want to give value to you all. I hope you all enjoy this, and until next time, stay savage.